right, it is 7:01. I'm calling this meeting to order. First item on the agenda, roll call. So starting Commissioner Edwards.
Present.
Commissioner Lates, myself is present. Commissioner Bryan.
Here.
Commissioner Saunders Pierce.
Present.
Commissioner Cryer.
Present.
And absent are Commissioner Gill and Redmond. Up next, approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, revisions?
No staff changes, thank you.
Thank you. I'll make a motion for approval of today's agenda.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Edwards. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
My thingy is loud.
Next, we have the approval of the minutes from March 17, 2025. Any comments or revisions on those?
No. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion made by Commissioner Sanders Pierce. I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I was not here, so I did not vote on the minutes.
Commissioner Bryan will abstain. Next, we have the unfinished business regarding the St. Paul Police Training Facility on 2621 Linwood Avenue East on the wetland buffer variance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. So I do have a presentation here to present, and then I'll introduce our guests here from the St. Paul Police Department. So you may recall from our last meeting, we reviewed this proposal and the Environmental Commission tabled it for additional information on the wetland buffer mitigation strategies. So just to summarize, the St. Paul Police Training Facility, they are proposing to update the existing training facility at 2621 Linwood Avenue. This is a 37.06 acre site and south parcel in the former golf course. So Ramsey County owns the property and has leased a portion to the city of St. Paul since the mid-1960s. So to move forward with this proposal, the applicant requests approval of a conditional use permit for the use of the property, design plans, and a wetland buffer variance. So the land use out here is zoned farm residential. This is some kind of leftover zoning from our farming days. It's guided as something else, but right now this is what it's zoned. So the city code does require a conditional use permit for public land uses in all zoning districts, and public land uses can be items such as hospitals, schools, or a facility like this. So when the St. Paul Police Department began leasing this site from Ramsey County, a conditional use permit was not required back in 60s and 70s. Wasn't in our zoning code. But the use of the property is not changing, it should be noted. The proposal to rebuild the classroom facility prompted the conditional use permit requirement to comply with the current city regulations. So because they are doing this, shall we say, improvement, the city is now looking at this and adding that conditional use permit as required per the zoning code. And again, this use is already established in this site. There are quite a few wetlands in this area, but more specifically on this property, there are two Manage A wetlands on either side of the site. So those are those two red colored wetlands that you'll see. And Manage A is the highest classification in the city of Maplewood's wetland classification, requiring a 75-foot minimum and 100-foot average wetland buffer for developments around those wetland. And within those buffers, no building, mowing, or grading is permitted within that buffer. But you can see that the existing conditions here have the drive lane, the tactical training buildings, the storage building, and gravel pad extending already into that 100-foot wetland buffer. And so these are considered pre-existing non-conforming structures and encroachments on that wetland. The new facilities, however, must comply with the city's wetland ordinance and buffer requirements. So here is the proposed update. They are proposing a 3,196 square foot building, and that'll be located on the southwest section of the site adjacent to the existing building, which, once this is constructed, will be demolished. So access from the south off of Linwood Avenue, and then this will include a classroom, 2 armories, a men's and women's locker rooms, a kitchenette, break room, and ADA-compliant restrooms. I understand right now they're using portable bathrooms in this site. The existing facility utilizes well and septic infrastructure, which will be replaced as part of this project, and that's because of the age of the existing systems. So with this improvements, they are required to make those improvements as well. The building and parking are entirely screened with existing landscaping and has currently a setback of 201 feet from the property line to the south along Linwood Avenue, and that's where that drive lane is, and then 84 feet to the property line to the west, which is where you'll find residential properties. The training facility is entirely screened from the adjacent public streets and residential properties with existing trees and, of course, the wetland there. And all setbacks are achieved with this development. With the proposal, they are removing some trees, 18 significant trees, and a significant tree in Maplewood is defined as a hardwood tree that is 8 inches or larger, hardwood that's 6 inches or larger, conifer that's 8 inches or larger, or a softwood that is 12 inches or larger. So they submit a survey of those significant trees on the site and identify which of those they'll be removing as part of our tree ordinance. And they identify 18 of those trees will be removed. They also, since our last meeting, have identified 4 dead ash trees, which we support removing, and that was adjacent the wetland one, which is located on the east side of the site. So in the landscape plan, they are proposing 18 new trees be proposed, which does meet the city's tree preservation ordinance, because they just have so many trees on site that the tree ordinance doesn't really kick in with the calculation until you remove over 20%, and they are not. So therefore, they have to replace 1 significant tree for one 2-caliber inch tree for 1 significant tree removed. So they are meeting the tree preservation requirements. The wetland buffer encroachments, so here you'll see the areas in purple and green identify areas that either are existing or with this proposal will be encroaching into the 100-foot wetland buffer. So on that east wetland, grading to within approximately 53 feet of that eastern wetland for the extension of a utility line, parking stall, and that septic system. And then on the west wetland, they're grading to within approximately 59 feet of the western wetland for building earthwork. So that's grading in and of itself, not the building itself. And based on that wetland buffer encroachment, the project does require a 41-foot wetland buffer variance because it's, within that 100-foot buffer. Keeping in mind there are existing encroachments out there now. But our ordinance does state that the Environmental Commission will take a look at these wetland buffer variances in order to look at the mitigation plan and come up with a strategy to, mitigate those impacts. And there's several standards that have to take place, one or more of these. Reduce or avoid impacts by limiting the degree or amount of activity. Rectify the impact by repairing, rehabilitating, or restoring the buffer. Reducing impacts by maintenance, compensate for the impact by providing additional buffer, monitor the impact by taking corrective measures, native plant restoration or replacement plan, or wetland buffer mitigation surety, or I should say that's part of it as well, to ensure that whatever mitigation strategy is recommended to the council and approved by the council, the city holds a surety to ensure that that project is complete. So during our April meeting, the applicants had proposed the 17,700 square feet of buckthorn removal and native seeding as the wetland buffer mitigation strategy. And the Environmental Commission last month identified a few issues with this. Number one, some of that buckthorn removal is taking place internal to the site, not necessarily within the buffer. Areas that are already being graded, and also there was some opportunity for adding some wetland buffer, particularly adjacent that Class 5 parking area there. So with that, the Environmental Commission called out a few things they wanted to see for mitigation strategy for review tonight, and I spell that out here. First, the possibility of adding 2 square feet of wetland buffer mitigation to 1 square feet of wetland buffer impact. So if they're encroaching, 1 square feet, they should do native plantings for 2 square feet of that area. The addition of a new 10-foot wide wetland buffer with native plugs and seeds along the west and north side of the eastern wetland. And as you recall, that was adjacent to Class 5 parking area. And then on the north side of that wetland, it was identified that that area is currently mowed down to the wetlands, so there's some opportunities for adding native plants there as well. The addition of a fence along the east side of the Class 5 and west side of the newly established 10-foot wide wetland buffer. This was in order to ensure no parking on those native plants, and then also the times that it's plowed, that snow is not plowed onto that wetland buffer itself. Installation of additional signage along the newly established 10-foot wide wetland buffer adjacent to Class 5 surface to ensure no parking or snowplow storage within the buffer. We do require those wetland buffer signs which state that you can't mow, grade, or build, but we thought, or I should say the Environmental Commission thought, particularly adjacent to Class 5 surface, there should be additional signage there. And then buckthorn removal concentrated in the wetland buffer and not within the internal site where grading is already taking place. So those were the items the Environmental Commission outlined. And here is the revised plan that the St. Paul Police Department had submitted. And this identifies different zones. So they're calling out Zone 1A and 1B, that's in the green I've identified, and that's 0.0 acres. And that's that northern wetland buffer that the Environmental Commission wanted to address. So in those two areas, removing and treating buckthorn, honeysuckle, and Japanese knotweed, so mainly focusing on the removal of the invasive species in this area. And then in Zone 2, which is the one adjacent to Class 5, that's 0.05 acres, remove and treat all Japanese knotweed and reed canary grass, seed with wetland edge seed mix, and then plant wetland edge with native plugs, which would be 24 inches on center, the planting plan. And then finally, Zone 3, now in this area, they're proposing to remove some of that Class 5 and replace with topsoil. That's where they're removing 4 dead ash trees in that area, and then seeding and planting mesic native seed and plugs. They are proposing also to install a fence with additional signage there. So you can see, rather than concentrating on buckthorn removal throughout the entire site, they're focusing more on removing non-natives and adding natives around this wetland edge, the eastern wetland edge. And so here's kind of some fuzzy pictures. I apologize, they're not very clear. But this is the fence that's being proposed. It'll have poles and then chain draped in between them to demarcate that wetland buffer so no one parks or they don't plow into that. However, I didn't find any height on this, so I can't report on that. And then the signage, this is one of the City of Maplewood's, it's not very fancy, I didn't get a colored one, but here's our wetland buffer area signage. We do require that this is installed every 100 feet around the approved wetland buffer, wherever that line is established. And then they're also proposing those signs every 25 feet along that Class 5. So in the environmental review, at the end of the report, I updated based on these modified plans. And some things that I note are the fence plan, we don't really have the materials, height, and I wasn't real clear on the location. So I thought that would be good to determine here tonight. And then native seed mix to be installed in Zone 1A, and you may recall that's the portion on that the north side. It appeared that they were proposing just to remove the invasive species there, which, is not adding a buffer per se. And then a detailed plan for new wetland buffer, including seed mix species and installation methods and location and species of native plant plugs. There's sometimes when the Environmental Commission has that plan before them, but it is quite a detailed plan. But that would be something that would be required prior to issuance of a grading permit, to see the actual planting plan. And our natural resource coordinator and others can review that plan. So the process, because of the tabling, has put us here tonight, which is the recommendation on the wetland buffer variance request. And then it's tentatively scheduled to go to the City Council for the conditional use permit, design plans, and wetland buffer variance request on June 9th. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the wetland buffer variance with the approved wetland buffer mitigation strategies. And I did outline some questions that I thought would be important to get answered tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, staff. I'd like to invite guests up if you have any additional comments to share.
Yeah, a couple. Thank you, and thank you, Sean. Sean brought up a couple of questions. One, not noting where that fence was to go. It is shown, although when I printed out the copy, I see it's a little more difficult to see on our sheet A001, our site plan. It is shown just right on the edge of that Class 5, stopping just short of that north area so that the staff can drive back to their training area and to give them a little opening to walk around their building. But otherwise, closing off that full area between the Class 5 and the wetland. And the height of the fencing, proposed at 42 inches tall, but open to commentary on what's needed. And I think when looking at that mitigation plan, and you can see there was not anything shown on that far east side. When the landscape architect went out on site, he did not find any of the invasive hardwood species that were on the 3/4 of the perimeter. So concentrating the effort to mitigate the areas where he did find the invasive species and then replace those with some plugs and plantings to keep them from coming back. That I guess I'm open to any further questions.
Thank you. And thanks for your work in putting together, your team's work in putting together the updates. On the line of the staff's recommended questions, did you have an estimate of the square footage of the encroachment and for comparison purposes against the mitigation acreage that we're proposing for remediation?
Yes, with the mitigation around the large pond on the east, and then maintaining some of that mitigation at the far west on the small wetland side, we're at the 2-to-1.
Great.
And I'd say about one, it's like, on that big pond, it's about 1.5 to 1.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, if I could ask a follow-up
Sure.
question. So if you could just briefly elaborate, I wasn't totally clear with the information in the packet. Is there buckthorn removal that is still contemplated around the wetland to the west, on the west
Yes.
side of the site? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. I was going to make an observation, if I may. I would like to just make an observation that I think there's been a lot more thought put into this particular proposal, and the original proposal certainly had the intent of meeting the buffer requirements, but I think this is a lot more thoughtful in terms of the ecological value that it's going to provide. And I really do find that the revisions here have really improved, I think, what's going to be a rich buffer plan, particularly for the wetland on the east, which was, I would just say, was a particular focus of our conversation because so much of the site drainage sheet flows across that portion of the site into that wetland. So, so I just wanted to say I appreciate the refinements. I think they really did elevate the robustness of that mitigation plan.
Thank you.
Additional comments from,
I would just add one other comment. I'm not concerned about the height of the fence that you were proposing. I think we will want to see the final details at that point when it's appropriate. But I think we were really more concerned about just making sure the placement was there and that it was a robust enough separation that it could stand the test of time with whatever traffic and operations are going on there. So myself, I'm not concerned about the height, but I think that for sure, just to make sure that it was, clear enough that that buffer, because it is a very tight space, partly because of the operations that we talked about at the last meeting, but it's tight space and we really want to make sure that buffer gets as much physical separation as possible.
Sure. If I could just add, I think it was briefly mentioned at the last meeting that perhaps like a wood split rail fence, something like that, might be an option. In talking about it afterwards, we decided to go with a galvanized steel because that should stand up longer and be maintained for a long time into the future.
I know that staff had also recommended taking a look at the zone, is it 1A on the diagram, as the one to look at additional possibility for seating. I don't know if anyone has a comment on that, if we would like to consider that as a additional piece, if that would, the police department would be amenable to that as well.
I believe they would be amenable. Took the recommendation of our landscape architect that with the removal of the woody invasive species, that the other natives that are there would fill in. But if that's not a comfort level, we're absolutely okay with additional plugs or seating.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, for that. And I think in particular, when I was looking at the information, and I might have done my math wrong, I was doing it kind of hasty, but I think along zone 2, which is about, it's a little over 2,000 square feet. I think there were plugs that were going to be 24 inches on center. I think if I did my math right, that's probably on the order of about 544 plugs that are going in there. And I think that's fantastic. And I know plugs can be, they can get expensive pretty quick. Not necessarily knowing the the on-the-ground condition along that north edge. I think that, while it's always desirable to add more plugs, I don't really know the density of the existing native grasses there. So I would suggest, evaluating native plugs to augment whatever is there, if anything, just to increase the diversity. You may have just, a few, maybe it's, a couple of goldenrod species, one or two, and, something. So to at least add to the diversity of that would be beneficial. So I would support seeing plugs on, on that north part as well, again, because there's, versus the south part of that wetland where it's, not as disturbed, the north area's got more, structure and building disturbance. So I think there'd be value there to consider that. Again, not knowing the actual on-the-ground conditions per se, I would be comfortable with, you don't, how would I say this? I don't think you need to meet the same density that you currently have with 24 inches on center, that's 500 some plugs. I think that's very appropriate for that zone too, because right now there's really not anything, but I would say, to include plugs in that north part would be beneficial. Maybe not at that same density though.
Right, there are quite a few trees on that north side, so just by that fact, there would be less.
Yeah, and so
Available space.
my opinion would be, the diversity would be, probably something to focus on rather than quantity.
Sure, absolutely.
Any other comments from the commission? Okay. I think the item on the table is a recommendation for approval of this mitigation plan.
Well, I would like to make a motion to approve the revised wetland mitigation plan as currently shown, with the condition that there are plugs added to the northern portion of the wetland buffer.
The motion is made by Commissioner Sanders Pierce, and I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, the motion is approved.
Thank you,
Thank you
Mr.
all.
Chair. So this is scheduled again to go to our city council on June 9th. Thank you.
Great, yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on our agenda, we have no new business listed. I don't see any visitors. So no visitor presentations, any commissioner presentations? Moving on, then we have oral reports from staff.
I have a feeling you're trying to get out of here early. I'm going to go real slow on these. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, staff presentations, thank you. So we will begin our new schedule of the second Wednesday of the month at 6 p.m. in June. So our next meeting will be June 11th at 6 p.m. I'll send you a reminder. And now this way we won't have to reschedule our January and February meetings every year. So I wanted to give a brief summary on our spring cleanup event, which was held May 3rd at Aldrich Arena. And I just kind of ran out of time and just plugged in some fun pictures for you. But I do have one big number, which is we had 331 vehicles coming through the event. It was a beautiful day. And Commissioners Cryer and Saunders Pierce were there to help out in our shred lane only lane. That's something we knew we tried this year. So I'll send more details on all the numbers. They're still kind of coming in on all the amounts we've collected. But I saw a lot of tires and construction debris and electronics and appliances, of course, are always big. So thank you for volunteering for that event, commissioners. It was a nice day, so we had a good turnout.
I just have a question. This has been an ongoing event, and it seems like it's being really well received by the community. And so is there any thought to extending it to being a semi-annual thing as far as like a spring cleanup and maybe a fall cleanup type thing? Or is that just a lot of work to try to get going off the ground?
The city used to hold a spring and fall cleanup, and then when we organized our trash hauling, we were able to focus on, because we offered the curbside bulky item collection through our trash hauler. It's a pretty reasonable rate. You can get rid of a mattress for $20, and they'll come and pick it up curbside and add it to your bill. I shouldn't say 20, I'm not sure, but the prices range from $10.75 to $37, depending on the item. So with that, we took away the fall cleanup. So we do in the fall do what we call a fall cleanup campaign, where our hauler, when we first organized and under the original contract, it was a 50% reduction for bulky item collection. Now it's down to 20%, but it's still a savings. And then this year, we're also working with Ramsey Washington Recycling and Energy Center, and they're offering, well, it was free for a few years. Now they want a cost share, but it'll be very reduced price for mattress collection, curbside. Basically, it'll be free to the residents, but really reduced for the city. So with that said, and the staffing needs and, just what goes into this, that's how we got away from doing that.
And just, be kind of interesting to see what the comparison of number is as far as having the 2 annual events. Are you able to get the same amount of stuff disposed of, throughout having the reduced rates and the spring event, or, was there similar, is the amount of trash being disposed of consistent, or, has there been an increase, decrease? It would just be interesting to see what has changed with the change in systems.
Yeah, we haven't done a thorough study on that. I didn't manage the cleanups when we had spring and fall, but that's very insightful. We do have all the numbers. It would just, we need a volunteer to look at the numbers. See, wants to bring something up. It's your project. So next time we talk trash, I'll have those numbers for you, and we can do a quick comparison. All right.
It'd be interesting to see.
Well, thanks again, and it was a successful event. And then I wanted to remind you that the Waterfest event, which is our opportunity to do some environmental education, we always have a booth, the Environmental Commission does, at this event, which is sponsored by the Ramsey Washington Recycling, no, Ramsey Washington. There's too many of these. Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District. Thank you very much. Of course, in Maplewood, we have 3 watershed districts, but Ramsey Washington has the most square footage here. So they put on this great event every year. There's thousands of people that attend, all sorts of vendors. So we are going to have a booth along with the Friends of Maplewood Nature. And I thought maybe I could turn it over to our subcommittee who's working on the booth and the environmental piece, and maybe you could give us an update on what we'll be educating on, and maybe a call for additional volunteers if you need. So with that, maybe Commissioner Cryer? Thank you.
Sure. I'd love to give an update. So we met with the Friends of Maplewood, or the Nature Center, Friends of the Nature Center, and planned out what we want to try to do. So our focus this year is on trees. And so our booth is going to be looking at how we educate on the trees throughout the seasons. And so that's a big part of what we're working on for ours. And then we'll be coordinating with some activities as well with the Friends of the Nature Center and different things. We're also going to have a tree type display where, the kids can put on an idea of what they've learned, and again, try to make it interactive and educational and fun at the same time. So I think the times, I think obviously we'd love to have volunteers. It's 11 to 4. I think we're planning on being there, early, doing the early shift, and I think you were planning on being in the later shift.
Yep.
So, but yeah, we're excited first time. I don't think I've ever attended, so I'm very excited to see it. I think it'll be a great day.
Yeah, excellent. If I could just add on to that, the display that was used last year set a really high bar. That was on compost, I believe, and yard waste, or waste for, it was on composting and basically solid waste. And it was really, really good. But what really, I think, inspired us when we were there, because we went into this conversation with Friends of Maplewood Nature and really hadn't had anything predetermined. And so we had some opportunity to talk beforehand. And one of the things that I think really inspired us to move in this direction about kind of focusing on trees was to celebrate Maplewood as a tree city. And that was one of the things that I think kind of sparked our conversation about that. And then how do we talk more than just, trees are good? So we had this idea of maybe trying to focus a little bit on each season, so trees through the season, and what are small things that individual property owners can do throughout each season to not only, manage their trees to the best of health, but also things that they could do that would be environmentally friendly management approaches. So how to make sure you're watering your tree, but doing it in a way that maybe minimizes overconsumption. Or what to do with your leaves in the fall at the end of the season, or the best time to prune so you don't create vulnerability and stress or spread tree fungus, things like that. But it really all came back to, I think, this idea that we wanted to celebrate, the fact that we're a tree city, and that's where we started from. And I'm really excited about it. So we're going to have a panel. We're going to put some educational material on each panel, and then again the activities and so forth that you said. But I think hopefully that will, that celebration of Maplewood as a tree city will be something people kind of take away as one key thing that maybe they didn't know before. So we'll see.
Thank you. I'll send out additional details on that in the event that others want to join the event on May 31st. There's 2 shifts, 10:45 to 1:30, and then 1:30 to like 4 or 4:15. All right, so I wanted to update you on our calendar for a few more months here. So the meeting in June 11th, we'll have our Assistant City Manager attending the city is going around to all the commissions, our management, and giving a discussion on some of the roles and responsibilities of commissions and boards. So I think that will be enlightening for us all. And then in addition to that, I've rescheduled the Friends of Maplewood Nature. They were going to be here tonight, but because of the St. Paul Police Training Facility, we moved them to June. So the commissioners that were on the subcommittee for Waterfest attended that Friends of Maplewood Nature board meeting, which was held at the Nature Center. So we talked to them about coming here, and giving us an update on some of the projects that they're working on and how there might be some synergy between the commission and the Friends group and working together on projects. And then I hope to have our annual report, which we really should get to the council here soon, so get you a draft of that at least. And then in July, I thought, because it's the middle of summer, and I had scheduled this tour on our original Environmental Commission meeting date, which would have been July 12th, but now, of course, we rescheduled everything. But I thought maybe we could just hold the July 12th Environmental Center tour. Of course, this is the new Ramsey County Environmental Center, which is in Roseville, where they're taking all of the recycling and household hazardous waste and food scraps, things of that nature. So we've coordinated a tour, and that just opened in April. I was actually there today for a recycling coordinators meeting, so I got a little preview, and it's pretty swanky. And they did build under the SB 30 building requirements, so there's a lot of sustainable building elements to it, so we can kind of get some inspiration for our green building code as well. So I'll go over all of these, and then you tell me if it makes sense to kind of do in lieu of in July, so not having a meeting. But then in August, having the regular meeting, which is August 13th, we could dive back into the green building code, hopefully get that worked out the rest of this year. And then, again, I had scheduled this Capital Region Watershed District tour for August 18th, which would have been our original meeting date. So we can either hold that August 18th date as the in lieu of the August 13th, or we can have both. Again, this is right in the middle of the summer. And then finally, September 10th, I was able to schedule Biz Recycling and Energy Smart to come and give us a presentation on the work that they're doing with businesses in particular on recycling and helping businesses reduce their energy use. So those were items that the commission wanted to work on this year. So what are your thoughts on the July and August meeting and doing the tours in lieu of the meetings? I mean, there's no big rush to hold the meetings like that one in August, but just want to run it by you.
Just a clarification question. So on here it says July 12th, Environmental Center tour. It's the 21st, is that right?
Yeah, because July 12th is a Saturday night.
Oh, date night.
I mean, it sounds like a fantastic date.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Let's see.
Yeah, on the agenda, it says the 21st.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so July 21st would have been our Environmental Commission meeting. Yeah, sorry about that. That is July 21st. And of course, our new schedule would have that meeting July 9th. So instead of July 9th meeting, just, because I don't really want to reschedule this tour, it kind of took a lot to get them to commit to the date. So July 21st instead of the meeting in July. What do you think? Is that good? Okay. I will be inviting the city council as well to this tour.
Good.
So then in August, any urge to make sure we have the meeting and the tour? Did I get that date right? Let's see. Yeah, I did.
I think so.
August 18.
Well, I'll just say that I don't really have a horse in this race because the 13th is my grandson's first birthday, and I think I'm going to be having a conflict, so I won't make the 13th no matter what. Yeah. I can make the 18th.
Well, you've made our decision for us. Thank you. Happy birthday. How exciting.
Yeah.
All right, so that's our schedule, and I'll send details to follow. And look at that. We're done. Thank you.
All right, we are on to end of the meeting. I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Bryan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourning at 7:46 PM.
One-
It is.